Levarme la moustache en la capucha. Casito patanilo, mira tacatiquipuletica. Casito patanilo, mira tacatiquipuletica. Casito patanilo, mira tacatiquipuletica. Casito patanilo, mira tacatiquitacatica. Casito patanilo, mira tacatiquipuletica. Casito patanilo, mira tacatiquipuletica. Casito patanilo, mira tacatiquipuletica. Sani levarme la moustache en la capucha.
What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show, and today, of course, all you know, the schedule was released a couple days ago, and I'm now getting in on it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys a small scouting report on all the teams that we're actually going to be facing this season. This is not my season prediction show. I'm just giving you guys an idea of what we're going to see this year, because I had told y'all way before all this was going on that we were going to have a very favorable schedule. And I knew from the get-go when they started announcing it and what we were going to see, who we were going to see, I said that, you know what, we're going to be good because of our schedule, but at the same time, we need to find out what we're really going to see and what is really going to be on the forefront for us to deal with, because at the end of the day, anything can happen. So again, like I said, my schedule release won't happen until right before the beginning of the season. So because I have to see what happens in most of these training camps and what happens with teams, who teams sign, and so forth and so on. So right now, these are small scouting reports with the teams in their current state. So starting off with number one, Jacksonville Jaguars. Doug Peterson takes over. Quarterback-friendly head coach. Quarterback guru in some ways. I will say this. I really do feel that Jacksonville may be better. Doug Peterson does a fantastic job when it comes to being able to utilize his running backs. And you're talking about Travis Etienne and James Robinson may be his guys this year. And because of that, we're talking about the fact that these guys may actually be better than we think. Their wide receiving core is okay. Not great, but okay. Their defense is great, but I honestly do feel that they are going to regret not taking Jordan Davis in the first round. And I understand that defensive tackles aren't normally taken number one overall, but he was one that was deserving of that spot. Their ends are amazing. Josh Allen, Clavion Chason, and Arden Key played together at LSU, so they may be trying to mount that thing back together. But again, like I said, I feel that the Jaguars are a team that still can be beat because their defense isn't as solid as you want it to be. Their secondary is okay, not great, but still, it's a team that when it comes down to it, they can show us up. And again, like I said, Doug Peterson takes over as head coach. And also, Mike Caldwell is the defensive coordinator for Tampa Bay, and their Super Bowl for Tampa Bay. So he actually is taking over and stuff like that. So it's actually a very solid grouping that they're going to put out on the field this year. And with Doug Peterson's leadership, it's no telling where they'll go. Next is the Detroit Lions. Again, this is a team that on paper may not seem as good, but they're led by an all-star football team coaches. You're talking about from Dan Campbell to Anthony Lynn to Aaron Glenn, and as their quarterbacks coach, you got Mark Brunell. They have a very solid coaching staff, but they also have a very solid team because, again, you're talking about what they did this offseason was actually pretty good. You're talking about Amon St. Brown sat up there and was actually a very solid and good receiver last year. I think he had like 90 receptions or something last year. He actually did very good last year. Then you pair him up with DJ Chark, and now you also bring in Jameson Williams, who probably won't be ready by the beginning of the season, but as the season goes on, they're going to turn into something. But guess what? We won't see him by then, so it really doesn't matter. But this is a team that we possibly can't sleep on. Don't get me wrong, their defense is still not there. Like, they got a lot of work to do on the defensive side. And I don't know how well they're going to be this year. But again, this is a team that you cannot sleep on. So, again, Detroit Lions offensively may be a serious threat. Again, you're talking about Amon St. Brown, DJ Chark. We're not going to see, we probably more than likely might not see Jameson Williams, but we don't know. We'll find out. DeAndre Swift, TJ Hawkinson. So they got a team. They got a team that can actually cause some problems. So that's the Detroit Lions. Next is the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, this team, you're talking about, they have a three-headed destruction machine at defensive tackle when you're talking about, you got Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, and Jordan Davis. Like, they are going to be probably one of the most devastating teams around. I could possibly see them moving to like a 3-4 type of thing, just to get Jordan Davis on the field. Jordan Davis and Javon Hargrave both on the field at the same time, along with Fletcher Cox. So that is something else. And if the reports are true, and it's being talked about, if James Bradbury and they find a way to get Jesse Bates out of Cincinnati, this is going to be a team that is going to be tough to contend with. Now, I know a lot of people are talking about Jalen Hurts, who, by the way, is a fantastic. He's a good quarterback. He's definitely a good quarterback. But if at any point he falters, understand that Gardner Minshew is there. And exactly how a lot of people talk about it, how Kirk Cousins has never played with top-level wide receivers, neither is Gardner Minshew. And you talking about Gardner Minshew with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I mean, that's going to be something to absolutely contend with. Dallas Goedert, they have a team. They have a team that can actually take the schedule they have and actually go pretty deep. So the Eagles, man, it's something, man, when it comes to them. Next, the Dallas Cowboys. They had a mass exodus in Dallas, but I think that they feel that they're not going to have much of a problem. Connor Williams was gone. Leo Collins is gone. Connor Williams kind of understood his regression when it came to that, because Connor Williams is a running offensive line who specializes in the run, and when Dallas moved away from that, that was going to be the end of his career. So we saw that. Yes, they lost Randy Gregory, but they did bring in Dante Fowler Jr. again. Dante Fowler Jr. had some of his best games, or some of his best career, under Dan Quinn down in Atlanta. So to be quite honest, Dante Fowler might actually be able to pick up the slack when it comes to that. And the boy that they drafted, Brian, I think it was Brian. Again, he's a very fast guy that comes off the edge. So they're doing pretty good. They picked up, I think it was Jordan Lewis, to play cornerback. So they actually have a solid team as well. Defensively, they're not as strong, but they're strong enough to make some headway, because Micah Parsons moves to the middle this year. So we're definitely going to see what happens with that. And the Damon Clark pick, that was pretty good. That was a good pick for them. So again, Dallas isn't that great on defense, but it's solid enough to make an impact. So that is Dallas. Next, the Tennessee Titans. The thing about them is that Derrick Henry is the man, but they lost their top wide receiver, and they now have to find a way to get that receiving core back into play. Now, I will say this: Robert Woods will be back this year, because I think he was injured last year, so he will be back this year. And you got Treylon Burks. If Treylon Burks can somehow even give up even have like 75% of the production that A.J. Brown had, you're talking about, again, Tennessee is another team that could be very dangerous as we go on. And defensively, they're very strong defensively. They also have weapons at the tight end position. I mean, they have Jeffrey Swain, and they brought in Austin Hooper. So they actually got some stuff that can actually be dangerous to us. They field a very good offensive line. So we're not talking about something that's a slouch, but again, another team that's very, very good. Next is the Chicago Bears. Chicago, I've never seen a team so intent on the failure of their quarterback. They have not done anything for him. I mean, they brought in Equinemius St. Brown. That's not enough. And he's not going to be good enough to help Justin Fields. Justin Fields needs a lot of help, a whole lot of help, and they just didn't give it to him. David Montgomery, I think, is coming back. Cohen, I think, is gone. So they just don't have much of anything there that's going to really that's going to speed up the Justin Fields development. Like I said, I'm a strong believer that when you draft a young quarterback, you find him a weapon to go along with him. They didn't take Jeremy Ruckert in the draft, and he's going to basically have to try to figure it out this year. And I'm sorry, man. It's so sad what's going on with Justin Fields in Chicago. But, man, he's going to struggle there. Next is the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay, again, for a team that seems to lose things, they always seem to somehow gain other things. So even though they lost a lot of their receiving core, they still kept enough that they can still be dangerous. You're talking about on offense, I mean, Devontae Adams is what they lost. They lost Iniquitous St. Brown. But again, you're talking about they still got Randall Cobb, who isn't the best guy, but you got Amari Rodgers. They drafted Christian Watson. So they actually have stuff there. Defensively, they are impressive. They did a great job defensively. I mean, you're talking about Rashawn Gary is going to step in until that starting role. Kenny Clark does his thing. One of my favorite safeties in the league, and Amos, they field a very solid team. Jair Alexander, he's going to be back. They feel a team that no matter what goes on, no matter how much Aaron Rodgers just destroys them cap-wise, they find a way to field a very solid team. And this year they're actually fielding a better defensive team than they have in the past. And because of that, Green Bay, again, as they fell off, they might have fallen off just slightly, but not enough to not be contenders. So there you go. Indianapolis Colts, again, this is another team that defensively, they're very strong. When you talk about Darius Leonard, my favorite safety in the league, and Julian Blackmon, he'll be back coming from injury. And you also got DeForest Buckner, and you got Kwity Paye. They have a very strong team defensively, and we're going to see what happens with them. I honestly feel that Matt Ryan gives them a better opportunity to win because he gets the ball out of his hands, and there's a lot of mistakes he won't make. He doesn't take a lot of sacks. Carson Wentz last year, that's what most people are not talking about. Carson Wentz took a lot of sacks last year, a whole lot of sacks. And a lot of that was just him holding on to the ball. So, I mean, because I think if I'm correct, I think he had like almost 30-something sacks. And I think like almost 75% of them was kind of his fault. So, it's one of those things where I think that they have upgraded with Matt Ryan. And to be quite honest, this is going to be a team that we might see, they might make the Los Angeles Rams turn around and get very far in the playoffs. So that's a team that, and of course, you can't deny the running back. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is just a monster. So he's one, and Matt Ryan likes throwing to the running back. So we're definitely going to see a different Jonathan Taylor come next year. So like I said, again, another good team. Next, the Minnesota Vikings. You can't say enough with how well balanced they are. Yes, they got Kirk Cousins, but they also got guns and stuff, and it's just like they got weapons, and because they got weapons, that's a problem. Defensively, they're still very strong. When you talk about Daniil Hunter, and they had an amazing pickup at middle linebacker in Jordan Hicks, which is the guy that I wanted us to get. But again, they still field a very even team. Like, they're solid offensively, solid defensively. So this is a team that, again, they can be beaten if you play them right, and if you fluster Kirk Cousins enough, they can be beaten. But other than that, they are a very well balanced team defensively and offensively. So, and with the addition of Kevin O'Connell as their head coach, yeah, we're talking about a team that offensively we might see some explosion, especially due to the fact that Kevin O'Connell inherits a better running back in Dalvin Cook. So we're definitely going to see how that goes. Next is the Houston Texans. My guy that I absolutely love, and Pep Hamilton, is down there. He's still entrenched as the offensive coordinator, and he's also the quarterback's coach. He gets year number 2 with Davis Mills. So I think that we're going to see a leap in Davis Mills' development. They did a good job getting John Amici the second or the third, I think it's the second, in the draft this year to pair up with Brandon Cooks. They needed another wide receiver. Nico Collins isn't the guy that's going to work out. So we'll see how that goes. The fact that they set up there and actually kind of reconfigured their offensive line, that was pretty good. Their defense is still not there. Losing Justin Reed is huge because he was a guy who roamed the field and was able to basically correct mistakes that was like, he was able to make adjustments that didn't destroy the offense. Didn't destroy the defense. So losing him, that's a big one. But Derek Stingley Jr., he fits that defense that Lovie Smith is going to run. Like I said, Lovie Smith, he had Aqib Talib in Tampa Bay, and he had Charles Tillman in Chicago. So yeah, this defense is going to be different, but it still doesn't have the talent on it that you would necessarily want. So we'll definitely see how that goes. But again, they're not a slouch team, but they still need work. The Atlanta Falcons, them bringing in Marcus Mariota to be their quarterback was probably not really a good thing, but we'll see. I will say this: if Desmond Ridder is in any way, shape, or form able to take over that starting job, they might be a problem because he's actually a better passer than Mariota is. So he can cause a little bit of a problem. But again, Atlanta did nothing to help their team, especially some of those veterans that are still there. They didn't make a lot of upgrades that made sense. They didn't do a lot of stuff that would have benefited them. I understand the Drake London draft pick. They needed a big guy. Again, you're talking about they trade Julio Jones away, and then basically they lost Calvin Ridley. So they needed something, and they needed something big. Cordell Patterson, again, he's a threat no matter what goes on. But you got I think his name is Zacchaeus or something like that. Yeah, this is what the team is, and I don't think that they're going to be any better next year, this upcoming season. So, because Atlanta didn't really do anything to help themselves, so that was kind of strange and a surprise, but it is what it is. Next, the New York Giants. New York, there's a lot of everybody needing to prove something next year. Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, because I don't see the defense is they lost 2/3 of their secondary, and they didn't lose just any 2/3. They lost probably their best 2/3. I mean, you're talking about James Bradbury was one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So them letting him go, I understood they can't pay him, but letting him go, that was a big thing. But the other thing was Logan Ryan. Logan Ryan could play so many positions. Like, he was the free safety, he could play the strong safety, and he could play slot corner. So they're going to really feel the sting of him not being there, because he was a guy that was definitely a guy who needed to, who should have, would have been a big contributor coming down the thing. But they did rebuild their offensive line. So we're going to see what happens with this offensive line, because they are going to need this offensive line, especially if they're thinking about possibly having Daniel Jones throw more. The last several years, Daniel Jones hasn't looked good throwing the ball. So we're going to see if they have fixed Daniel Jones and his throwing problems with them rebuilding this offensive line. So we'll definitely see that. Next, the San Francisco 49ers. What more can you say? We're going to see if Jimmy Garoppolo is even going to be the starter coming next year. I think they already said that they're looking for Trey Lance to step up this year. So you're talking about you now have a running quarterback, which is something that Kyle Shanahan hasn't really had since RG3. And not only that, Trey Lance actually is a better passer and is a better quarterback than RG3. So you're talking about, Trey Lance, if he looks anything like he possibly can look during this season, he's going to be a problem. Defensively, they still stack a very solid defensive team. Fred Warner in the middle, Nick Bosa. They also got D Ford. I think it's D Ford that they got. Yeah, D Ford and Eric Armstead. So I mean, they absolutely have a serious team there. Kinlaw, they have a serious team to contend. And again, like I said, they're not slouches either. But again, these are teams that when it comes down to it, you can see them the thing about the 49ers is that if they get an injury, it's hard for them to recover from that injury. So that's one thing that happens with them. But again, they're still a solid team. Last but not least is the Cleveland Browns. I don't think that Cleveland is going to change their offense enough. If Stefanski takes the approach that he took in Minnesota, where they were throwing the ball a little bit more, this might work out. But if they deploy Deshaun Watson the same way they deployed Baker Mayfield, it's not going to work. Amari Cooper's going to be pissed off. He's going to be mad. But they still have a lot of offense and defense, to be quite honest. I mean, they field some of the best cornerbacks when you really think about it, because I think they have Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams, and they got another person. I can't think of his dang name right now. But they feel a very solid secondary. They are, of course, Myles Garrett. He is what he is. And I just feel that when it comes down to it, they don't have, there's some things on defense that they can do better. Joker actually played very well last year. So we're going to get our opportunity to see him this year and see what he brings to the table. But again, like I said, Cleveland, they still got the two-headed beast at running back. And now they got a quarterback who can also run and throw the ball. Depending on how Stefanski deploys him, we're going to see what can happen. So those are my summaries of the teams we're going to see this year. Like I told y'all, Washington has a very favorable schedule this year, because all these teams on this schedule are teams that it's like the up and down thing. You could possibly, you're not supposed to beat them, but you did beat them. So that's what Washington has on their schedule this year. They have a lot of teams that is like, you're not supposed to beat them, but more than likely you can beat them. They're not supposed to beat you, but more than likely they can beat you. And like I said, this schedule is very, very favorable for Washington. So we'll definitely see what happens. Y'all tell me what y'all think. Y'all tell me what y'all think when it comes to summarizing some of these teams and what you think that their focus might be when they're facing Washington. Other than that, this has been your man John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.